Hello. It's good to see you again. Welcome back. I wanted to share, one, I want to encourage you. I said this last time, but I'm making a concerted effort to not carry my phone on me, to use my time, my leisure time, more wisely than just looking at, banal emails or, heaven forfend, just doom scrolling on social media. So I would encourage you to, if you can, to, like we talked about last time, get a small copy of a book, one of those little Gideon New Testaments. Or I showed you last time my smaller copies, the Temple Classics of the Divine Comedy. I know Everyman's Library has somewhat recently put out these smaller editions of different poets. So I actually have a couple on order at the moment that I'm looking forward to having, but they're just these smaller editions of. I ordered a copy of Coleridge and George Herbert's poems, and they're just a smaller format, and it just makes it easier to carry it in a jacket pocket. And most people carry most women carry a purse. A lot of professional men, particularly, will carry a tote or a briefcase or something like that. You just carry it on you or close to you rather than your phone. So in moments where you're bored, you have a few minutes to rest and relax, instead of just gravitating toward, the mal ritual of pulling out your phone, your Palantir, and just frittering the time away. Use the time well. Use it well to, and I don't mean use it well in that you have to produce something, but use it well in that you're either producing something or you're getting pleasure out of something, a legitimate pleasure that lasts with you. For instance, a George Herbert poem is going to last with you much longer than whatever I don't know that you could tell me what the most recent post you saw on XYZ social media. So anyway, I want to encourage you in that. But I also wanted to show you some recent acquisitions. A couple of these I've had before, and one of them is completely new to me. But the two here that I have, the first one that I want to share, now these are really, these were introduced to me by other people, like most of them. I almost have no original bone in my body. But this first one I've read before, and I just wanted a physical copy because I read an ebook version of it. This is Hilaire Belloc's The Path to Rome. I've never read really any Hilaire Belloc before, but this is a very nice copy. The binding's a little fragile, so I have to kind of be careful with it, but it's a nice copy, and it's really written. What The Path to Rome is, it's an account of a pilgrimage someone takes from France down to Rome, Italy. So they go on pilgrimage, and the whole pretense of this book is it's written like a conversation between an author and the reader, or what's called the actor and the lector, the author and reader. And they kind of go back and forth, and it's very heavy on the actor's side of the conversation. But he goes through and he just explains things, and he often goes off on these philosophical or theological tangents. And it's really quite enjoyable. One, Hilaire Belloc is very good at just describing scenery and atmosphere. Other people that do that really well are like Tolkien. He can paint a landscape for you in prose very, very well. He does that very deftly, and so does Hilaire Belloc, particularly in this, because the whole thing is it's a pilgrimage. This fellow is walking from France to Rome, and so you get all of his descriptions of the mountains and valleys and forests and all that sort of thing. But he also often goes off on these really delightful tangents, and this one, you'll love this, or I love this, is this tangent on breakfasts. It says right here. And it starts here. It says, I should very much like to know what those who have an answer to everything can say about the food requisite to breakfast. Those great men, Marlowe and Johnson, Shakespeare and Spenser before him, drank beer at rising and tamed it with a little bread. In the regiment, we used to drink black coffee without sugar and cut off a great hunk of stale crust and eat nothing more till the halt. For the matter of that, the great victories of '93 were fought upon such unsubstantial meals. For the Republicans fought first and ate afterwards, being in this quite unlike the 10,000. Sailors, I know, eat nothing for some hours. I mean those who turn out at 4 in the morning. I could give the name of the watch, but that I forget it and would not be plagued to look up technicalities. Dogs eat the first thing they come across. Cats take a little milk, and gentlemen are accustomed to be up at 9 and eat eggs, bacon, kidneys, ham, cold pheasant, toast, coffee, tea, scones, and honey, after which they will boast that their race is the hardiest in the world and ready to bear every fatigue in the pursuit of the empire. But what rule governs all this? Why is breakfast different from all other things, so that the Greeks call it the best thing in the world, and so that each of us, in a vague way, knows that he would eat at breakfast nothing but one special kind of food, and that he could not imagine breakfast at any other hour in the day? If you can imagine, that goes on for another page. But it's very delightful. Gentlemen eat all of this stuff and then go on to say that, they're these just, the toughest of the tough. And so it's just very humorous, it's very funny. But he approaches it from this kind of standoffish, very pedantic, curmudgeonly perspective, which, if you can imagine, I enjoy a great deal. So I recommend The Path to Rome by Hilaire Belloc to you. Another copy, and this came up at a recent meeting of the Symposium, my wine and book club. And my older brother had recently read this book. This is Evelyn Waugh's A Handful of Dust. And this is a copy of the Everyman's Library edition, which is very nice. I mean, they always do these copies really, really well. I like nicely done dust wrappers. I know most people don't, or a lot of people don't. They prefer just the cloth bound or leather bound. But I like a good dust wrapper, and Everyman's Library does really good. But then their covers are wonderful. This is a really dark blue a canvas cover, cloth cover, and the binding is almost always very strong. They do have pretty weak ribbons in all of their editions. I'm really rather unimpressed. On some of them, they're so frustrating that I've cut them out, actually. But they're kind of flimsy and they just do the job. But this is Evelyn Waugh's A Handful of Dust. Evelyn Waugh is the author of his more well-known work, Brideshead Revisited, which I've recommended. I've actually purchased a new copy of it somewhat recently too, because I gave away my copy to someone. But I thought I would read this. This is the beginning of chapter 2. I haven't read this yet, so but this is the excerpt that my older brother had read at our wine and book club, and I found it delightful, and it's the reason why I bought the book, because I thought this was so delightful. I can't imagine that the rest of the book would be less enjoyable. So at least part of this, the conception of the story, is that it's this sort of dialogue between this excerpt from a local English visitor's guide on this particular Gothic mansion whom the main character inhabits, or which the main character inhabits. And so there's this excerpt here that I'll read, and then the explanation, essentially, or the narrative continues. So it says here, this is the section from the Visitor's Guide. Quote, "Between the villages of Hetton and Compton Last lies the extensive park of Hetton Abbey. This, formerly one of the notable houses of the county, was entirely rebuilt in 1864 in the Gothic style and is now devoid of interest. The grounds are open to the public daily, and until sunset, the grounds are open to the public daily until sunset, and the house may be viewed on application by writing. It contains some good portraits and furniture. The terrace commands a fine view." End quote. So then the narrative goes on. This passage from the county guidebook did not cause Tony Last any serious annoyance. Unkinder things had been said. His Aunt Frances, embittered by an upbringing of unremitting severity, remarked that the plans of the house must have been adapted by Mr. Pecksniff from one of his pupils' designs for an orphanage. But there was not a glazed brick or a caustic tile that was not dear to Tony's heart. In some ways he knew it was not convenient to run, but what big house was? It was not altogether amenable to modern ideas of comfort. He had many small improvements in mind which would be put into effect as soon as the death duties were paid off. But the general aspect and atmosphere of the place, the line of its battlements against the sky, the central clock tower where quarterly chimes disturbed all but the heaviest sleepers, the ecclesiastical gloom of the great hall, its ceiling groined and painted in diapers of red and gold, supported on shafts of polished granite with vine-wreathed capitals, half lit by day through lancet windows of armorial stained glass, at night by a vast gaselier of brass and wrought iron, wired now and fitted with 20 electric bulbs. The blasts of hot air that rose suddenly at one's feet through grills of cast-iron trefoils from the antiquated heating apparatus below. The cavernous chill of the more remote corridors where, economizing in coke, he had had the pipes shut off. The dining hall with its hammer beam roof and pitch pine minstrel's gallery. The bedrooms with their brass bedsteads, each with a frieze of Gothic text, each named from Malory, Iseult, Elaine, Mordred and Merlin, Gawain and Bedivere, Lancelot, Percival, Tristram, Galahad, his own dressing room, Morgan Le Fay, and Brenda's Guinevere, where the bed stood on a dais, the wall hung with tapestry, the fireplace like a tomb of the 13th century, from whose bay window one could count, on days of exceptional clearness, the spire of 6 churches. All these things with which he had grown up were a source of constant delight and exultation to Tony, things of tender memory and proud possession. They were not in fashion, he fully realized. 20 years ago, people had liked half timber and old pewter. Now it was urns and colonnades. But the time would come, perhaps in John Andrews' day, where opinion would reinstate Hetton in its proper place. Already it was referred to as amusing, and a very civil young man had asked permission to photograph it for an architectural review. Let's see. I'll skip here. It says, all over England, people were waking up, queasy and despondent. Tony lay for 10 minutes, very happily planning the renovation of his ceiling. Then he rang the bell. Has her ladyship been called yet? About quarter of an hour ago, sir. Then I'll have breakfast in her room. He put on his dressing gown and slippers and went through into Guinevere. Anyway, I found that just excerpt towards the beginning of the story so interesting, and I would, of course, be delighted myself to live in such a house. And so I bought the book, so I encourage you to read that as well. And then in the spirit in which we've tried to inculcate of reading a poem of some kind, one of the other recent acquisitions I have is this copy of Coleridge's Poetical Works. It's this really delightful copy, and all of the binding is super strong. It's nice old and very aromatic. It smells like a dusty old book, just like it should. And who is this by? This is the Poetical Works of S.T. Coleridge by Frederick Warne and Company, and New York, London. So anyway, I had a copy of Coleridge's Poetical Works probably 2 years ago, and by just an accident, I gave it away to someone who didn't have a copy of Coleridge, so it was worth it. But for some reason, I thought I had another copy, and I didn't. So I've gone for, if you can imagine, 2 years without a copy of Coleridge's poetry. And so I finally, with some recent birthday money, I bought this copy of his poems again. And just flipping through it on a couple different evenings has been very delightful. I'll read this poem. This is To a Friend, in answer to a melancholy letter. So it starts. Away those cloudy looks, that laboring sigh, the peevish offspring of a sickly hour, nor meanly thus complain of fortune's power when the blind gamester throws a luckless die. Yon setting sun flashes a mournful gleam behind those broken clouds, his stormy train. Tomorrow shall the many-colored main in brightness roll beneath his orient beam. That alliteration there, in brightness roll beneath his orient beam. While as the autumnal gust the hand of time flies o'er his mystic lyre in shadowy dance, the alternate groups of joy and grief advance responsive to his varying strain sublime. Bears on its wing each hour a load of fate. The swain, who lulled by sen's mild murmurs led his weary oxen to their nightly shed, today may rule a tempest-troubled state. Nor shall not fortune with a vengeful smile survey the sanguinary despot's might, and happily hurl the pageant from his height, unwept to wander in some savage isle. There, shivering sad beneath the tempest's frown, round his tired limbs to wrap the purple vest, and mixed with nails and beads an equal jest, barter for food the jewel of his crown. That was very nice. Coleridge is one of those poets who you can just open him up and read anything, and it suits the moment, or at least it seems that way. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed some of those readings and those excerpts. I really had nothing original to say, I suppose, today. But I almost never have an original thought. So anyway, it was good to see you again. I hope you got some pleasure out of that, and hopefully you read some of those and get pleasure out of those as well. Until next time, I'll see you again soon. Bye.